I'm so excited to have Jaclyn Ling, founder of Bento, on the podcast today. We're going to be talking about building systems for content creators and being able to build brand deals and partnerships in 2026. And I want to say thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I've never done a pod about skincare and business, which is like literally my two favorite things ever. So excited that we get to combine the two today.
I am really excited to talk to you about both things as well. The first thing I want to talk to you about is your business. I wanted to ask a little bit about your background and your career because Bento is fascinating, but I want to know what prompted that. Where did the inspiration and the motivation come to create Bento?
Totally. So, I mean, it's so funny, people say the dots don't really connect until later on. And I feel like my story and journey was quite that. Like a lot of the things that happened earlier in my career didn't make sense then, but then make a ton of sense now with Bento. So, actually, when I was a teenager, so like a long, long time ago, I started a YouTube channel and I was like, first few years of when YouTube rolled out, I started a YouTube channel because I just thought it was so interesting that you could make content online, strangers could watch you, and you could just kind of have friends that you don't even know online. And it was just kind of like a side project back then, and I never really took it anywhere. And then I went to study business in university, did finance, and then when I graduated, I just started my first startup. It was a tech startup in the fashion space. That's where I met my co-founder. We built this app that basically learned your fashion style and gave you personalized recommendations. We got that acquired by a larger company. So that's where I worked at a larger tech startup and focused on building brand partnerships. So that was actually my first experience where I started working with really big brands like H&M and Sephora and these big retail brands to bring them on social apps. And so this interconnection between social and shopping and content was what my experience was at this company that I worked at. From there, I started my next company, which was a recruiting tech startup. And that's where I learned all my skills in sales. So like, how do you sell to other businesses and build these processes to get a cold emailing funnel going? How do you do cold calls and how do you do like meetings to close deals? That's where I built all my sales skills, which is obviously so relevant now because Bento is helping content creators be their own sales team and help them close brand deals and build brand partnerships. A lot of my background is kind of like a whole mix of things, but relates to Bento today, which is some mix of content, sales, brand partnerships, and really helping to empower the entrepreneurs of the next generation. So yeah, that's a bit about myself and my background.
Yeah. And, I think we should jump back a half a step because I want to ask you, what is Bento?
Good question. Yeah, Bento is a platform that helps content creators land brand partnerships. Our philosophy is really that to become and build a real business, you need to own your relationships and build your kind of funnel from scratch like any other regular business. Content creators just don't have those tools today. A lot of startups and big businesses and enterprises have these sales tools to help them build a foundation of a sales funnel, but content creators don't have that. And so Bento is building tools to empower creators to build real businesses out of their content.
Okay, so when you got the idea to start Bento, was it always Bento or was there another name? I always love to ask the story behind the name.
There was not really another name I considered. It was really just thinking about, sales and kind of building these funnels for marketing and sales is really complicated. And I was like, what do we want our users to feel? And we want them to feel like it's very organized and like we help do it for you. And it's like kind of in these neat little boxes. And that's kind of when I thought about Bento as like a little bento box is like something that helps you organize. And it's just like easy and clear to do. So that's kind of the inspiration. It was pretty on a whim, actually. It was just like, oh, what's a cute name? I like the name Bento. It's like really easy to understand, easy to spell. Let's just go with it.
So you get this idea for Bento. How do you kind of go from ideation to validation? What is that process? Because I feel like you took a very unique approach.
So there was two really interesting things that we did that maybe is more non-traditional. The first is we actually just started reaching out to content creators without a product. So we actually had no product built. We just started cold emailing content creators to say, hey, we have this product. This is what it's going to do for you. Are you interested? And we got so many people interested. It was like the highest response rates I'd ever seen of sending cold emails. And I'm like, there's something here if content creators are responding to cold emails. There's some interest here. There's a need that's not built. So that kind of gave us our very first marker of there's a need here that is not being met for content creators. And then from there, because I didn't really know much about content creation and I didn't have many friends in it, really for me, I thought the only way to build a really, really good product is if I became the user myself. If I kind of learned all the ins and outs of becoming a creator and the tools that they need to succeed, I'm going to need to become a creator myself and just, become our core user and then build tools that I wish I had. So that's when I started becoming a UGC creator. I spent a month trying to learn everything I could about UGC, built my own portfolio, starting to pitch to brands. And in my first week, I closed my first deal. And I was like, okay, it's on. I'm ready. We're doing something that's actually working and I'm going to become a content creator now. So that was kind of my story.
And do you still consider yourself a content creator and do you still enjoy it?
So yes and yes, I still consider myself a content creator. I still work with brands. I've tried to keep it at a minimum since I focus mostly on building Bento, but I do like to keep it on the side because it helps me stay really in touch with our users. I love it. I love working with brands. I love creating content. It's sort of my only creative outlet, really. And it's been fun to learn from other creators. And so, yeah, it's been really, really fun.
So, because the show is called What's Your Skincare Routine? I have to ask you, especially before we get deeper into Bento and brand deals, I want you to walk us through your current skincare routine. Are there any non negotiables, or is there anything that's changed about your routine since becoming a content creator?
So, for sure, since I became a content creator, two things have changed. One is I try a lot more products out now because my content focuses on skincare content. So most of the brands I work with are skincare brands. So I'm trying so many new products all the time, which is completely new and so much fun. And the second is it's so funny. Before I was a creator and I loved skincare so much, but it's so expensive, right? I so remember being like, I can only use one drop. I can only use this little tiny drop and that's all I can use because I really need to save this. What's been amazing is because I have a surplus of beauty products now, I can actually be a lot more generous with the products I use. And it feels like it's made such an impact, right? Instead of using one drop of serum, I can kind of lather it on. That's made a pretty big difference. So I love that I get to do that. My skincare routine is, I don't know how different it is from most, but I would say I have the sort of what I do on a daily basis and then what I do on a weekly basis. So on the weekly, I'll do kind of, the traditional 1 or 2 times a week retinol, 1 to 2 times a week exfoliation, 1 chemical exfoliant, and then 1 physical. I have my red light mask. So whenever I remember to use that, I try to do that. And then those are kind of the once a week type of things. The daily thing is kind of, in the morning, just your typical, I like vitamin C serum a lot. So I'll use a vitamin C serum in the morning, plus a moisturizer, and then of course, sunscreen. And then at night, it kind of it rotates my favorite products. So either some niacinamide serum or again, vitamin C, and then lots of moisturizer. And then whether I use the retinol or the exfoliant, that kind of rotates. So that's kind of my general routine.
I love that. I mean, you sound like a skincare content creator for sure. So, when it comes to products and especially makeup, are there any things or steps that you do to keep yourself camera ready, especially when you're creating content on camera?
So I love a good concealer. I feel like as a founder CEO, I don't get a lot of good sleep sometimes, so that tiredness sometimes comes up. So a good concealer helps a lot for makeup. I love a good just hydration spray. If I'm filming in the middle of the day and I need kind of that extra spritz, I'll do that. Honestly, the ring light, the one that I have on right now, helps a lot with just brightening your skin and kind of the light. I feel like lighting is everything when it comes to filming. So that's kind of a little thing that helps me a lot too. But other than that, I just try to keep as natural as I can, I guess.
Do you have any favorite brands or categories, whether an SPF in general or maybe a favorite retinoid that you go to time and time again?
So actually a SPF that I've discovered that I've been using lately, I actually brought it here so I can share with you. It's the Ultraviolet Spray SPF. So what I love about this is I do SPF in the morning with my skincare routine, but middle of the day, I hate putting creams on top of the creams you already have, but this is just a spray. So you can just spray it on your face and it kind of gives you that extra dose of SPF. So I love that because it helps me reapply SPF during the day, and it's really like light and easy to use. So that's kind of my new favorite.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so let's get back to Bento, and I want to talk about the platform capabilities. Can you walk through some of the main features and how basically it streamlines the process of creators connecting with brands?
So it's a very simple and easy product to use. It's basically a platform that has a huge database of brand and PR contacts. So hundreds of thousands of PR contacts that we've gone ahead and verified and loaded it up onto Bento. And it's really easy for you to find brands in your niche. So if you want to find specific brands, you want to filter down and look for brands in the niche of content that you make, it's easy for you to do that. And anytime you find a brand that you want to pitch to, you just hit email and we help you load up an email template. We use AI to help you write a pitch template. You can edit that, you can add your own spin to it, and then you can send an email to a brand. And the nice thing is we set up a lot of automations for you to help you increase the chances of you getting a response. Follow-ups is like one of the key ways that you can increase your reply rate from a brand. And a lot of people forget to do that because it's so tedious. You have to like put in a spreadsheet, like remember to follow up with this brand if they don't respond, and it's so annoying. And so we just automate that for you. So we basically load up your follow-up email. We'll send that follow-up email for you within a few business days. If you don't hear back from the brand, we'll automatically cancel it for you so it's not awkward. So we take care of all that for you to make that full process of sending emails to brands really simple. And then we help make the process of tracking all of that really easy as well. So in a very simple CRM, you'll see all the brands that you've pitched to, you'll see all the brands that responded to you. We'll help draft all the email responses for you. So anytime a brand asks you a question, we've automatically drafted a reply for you, and all you have to do is hit send. So we make the whole process of finding brands to pitch to, getting their email addresses, and figuring out the best email and follow-ups to send to, like a super streamlined process.
And I've been a Bento user for a few months now, and I am absolutely fascinated by what you've built because as a content creator, I've been doing this for a number of years, and I find that we actually talked previously, probably, a few months ago. I used to get so many inbounds, but now I find myself pitching, especially since my content, my niches are pivoting. My content is shifting a little bit. So I want to connect with different brands, different companies to see how we could work together. But my issue was sort of, do you just try to slide into everybody's DM? And for me, especially kind of coming from a more professional background, like that doesn't always yield what it wants to. You could be talking to somebody on the social team who's completely different from the decision maker, the person who is actually hiring content creators. So I find that the process that as you laid it out, it really solved immediately a lot of pain points for me, just kind of reaching out to the best contacts. And then the follow-ups were something I really was not good at that because you send an email and you're like, oh, okay, they're not interested. And even if you have tracking software, you're like, oh, they opened it. Okay, they must be not interested or whatever. And you kind of get disheartened and like, take it personally.
Completely.
But I think the thing that I also really appreciate is, you literally type in the brand name and you have contacts. And in most cases, there are several contacts to choose from. Experience working in the more corporate world, there were sales platforms that you could do this with and kind of set that cadence for emailing, outreach, follow up. But I've never seen anything like this for content creators, whether you are a beginner creator, UGC creator, or somebody who has more experience. So it's been really eye-opening, and I've gotten a lot of information about my outreach, and there's so much data. So I don't want to just keep talking about my experience, and I want to ask you a little bit about your experience because you did validate through creating your own UGC content and you're still a creator. So I wanted to ask, was there a brand partnership or a brand that surprised you the most by working with them? Did you have any unique experiences?
Oh, I've had so many unique experiences. When I first started content, I honestly couldn't even imagine working with brands, let alone like getting paid to work with them, right? And so when I first started, I mostly just pitched to skincare brands because that was the easiest thing for me to make content on. But in the back of my head, I was like, a dream would be if I got to get furniture because I was just moving places and I had just moved to New York and I was like, I don't have anything for like this new place I'm moving into. like what a dream would it be if I could work with brands to help me furnish my place. And so I started creating content for my portfolio to add some more home stuff. And then I started pitching to home brands. And within about a month, I honestly furnished almost my entire place with UGC style content. So like I got my bed and mattress, like a rug, my standing desk and chair, my air conditioner. Like I honestly was floored. I couldn't believe all the partnerships I was able to do through this. And that was a very like, wow, like pinch me moment. I can't believe I came that far as a content creator and was able to land these deals. So I would say all the home stuff that I've done was a complete shock for me and just something I'm so grateful for.
Was there a particular brand that said yes that you were never expecting to get that yes from?
So a rug is something I really wanted, and I had read online that it was very hard to get a partnership with rugs.com. But yeah, I pitched to them and then they said yes. And I was very, very surprised about that one because I had read a lot of people wanting to work with them, but wasn't able to get in touch. So that one was a exciting one.
That's really cool. Do you still have a dream brand or any partnerships that are like on your vision board?
I mean, I always think about like, in a dream world. I said a little bit earlier that my first startup was actually in the fashion space, and I haven't delved into fashion content yet because I feel like it's a little bit more effortful than the skincare stuff, but that's something I might want to do in the future. And like, I have so many dream fashion brands that I would want to work with. I had the opportunity to. Like, first comes to mind, I'm always shopping on the Real, which is a high-end consignment. If I could do a partnership with that would be like, I've made it. So that's maybe for 2026.
Love that. And what about any partnerships maybe for Bento? Maybe there's a platform integration or a brand collab that, maybe you're dreaming up in your head that you want to manifest and you can also share?
Yeah, what can I manifest and put there out there in the world? When I think about Bento, the thing that I get so excited about is that we really are empowering entrepreneurs and like these small businesses that are getting started every single day. Missions get me excited. And when I think about the platform that really empowers small businesses, I think about Shopify. Like Shopify is one of those where it's like you can just start up, an e-commerce site and become a business owner like overnight. And it's empowered so many small businesses. And so I think there's an interesting angle there where like there's these smaller creators who can help create content for these small businesses on Shopify, and there's no obvious way right now for them to connect. That could be a super interesting partnership that I think could be a huge win-win. So I think, anything that'll do their mission of helping to empower small businesses is something I'm all for. And I guess Shopify is the first one that comes to my mind.
Okay, that's awesome. So let's shift the conversation to creators. What are some of your actionable tips for somebody who is starting out as a content creator? Maybe they're going to pivot in the new year to become a content creator, whether it's UGC or, they maybe do have a following and they want to go full time as an influencer.
There are so many tips. So maybe I'll go through if you're kind of new and then if you're trying to go from part-time to full-time. So if you're new as a content creator, I mean, very first thing is just take it step by step. I think people get very overwhelmed and think they need to do everything all at once. It is like definitely a process and it takes patience. A lot of people give up too quickly. So the more you can break it up so that you do not get burnt out early is key. I think that getting feedback early is super important, both feedback on your content, but also feedback on your pitch email. A lot of people, I think it's hard to get feedback, especially from people that you know or from coaches or people that you respect, but that's the quickest and easiest way that you're going to get from where you are today to like that next level. So if you're new and you're just starting to put together your portfolio or your content, very much recommend you asking other creatives for feedback on your content and your portfolio, asking coaches for feedback, putting it out there on social media. And, engagement is in some shape or form feedback. So just really doing that reflection on like where can you improve and constantly improving your content and your pitch template. Your pitch template, like you can use Bento to help you draft your initial pitch template, but adding your personal spin and making sure that you add in like your personality and making it more personalized is super important. I always find people maybe take the quickest path of just like using AI and that's it. But the more you can add that human touch, the more likely you're going to get a response. So spend that extra time adding in the human touches of yourself and your personality into your pitch email. And then lastly, like you have to look at your metrics. Like data is everything. Like if you are not constantly understanding what's going on with your pitch email and your response rate and your close rate, it's so hard to make any changes. So you really have to understand and monitor your metrics. And Bento does make that really easy for you because we tell you how many emails have been sent, what's your open rate, what's your response rate. And at each point of those things, you can improve those and make optimizations. But if you don't take that first step of actually looking at your metrics, you can't do anything to change it to make it better. So I guess those would be my 3 biggest tips if you're just getting started. If you're going from like part-time to full-time, then I really think it's about creating these systems to help you scale. It's like you can't do everything on your own, and you got to preserve that energy of yours of what you do love doing. And so the places that you hate doing things, like that's where you delegate, right? Like if you hate editing your content, that's maybe consider getting an editor. If you hate sending the pitches, use Bento. If you hate negotiating, maybe hire a social media manager. I think that's where you scale up is like, if you already have something working and you just need more and faster, then just delegate the things you hate and then like focus and double down on the things that you love.
That is great advice. I want to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is AI. So I feel like everybody is, not everyone, but I feel like many people are at best concerned about AI. Some people are fearful. Do you think it's going to replace content creators?
Such an interesting question. I feel like I get people asking that a lot, especially like investors. There's going to be a place for AI content, and there's going to be a portion of consumers who like to consume that content. And there's always going to be a portion of consumers that really crave that human storytelling, that human connection, right? Like a lot of times, the people you follow online on social media, it's not just about the content and pictures that they post, but it's the whole story behind them, right? It's like, who is this person? I want to follow this person for their story. And that's not something that AI can do, right? Like AI is not somebody who's living life and developing the story that you want to follow, right? So it'll be impossible for AI to fully replace that true human need that we have, that we crave, of connecting with people online and connecting with people's stories and getting inspired and motivated by them online.
For 2026, what trends are you seeing based on your experience so far? We just talked a little bit about AI, but what are maybe some of the niches that are coming up that are maybe not as saturated that people are overlooking and maybe should consider in the new year?
So I don't know that I think that there's a particular niche that is coming up that hasn't come up yet, but I think what's always going to happen is like every niche uses content online to try to attract their consumers, right? But the type of content that performs for that niche is what changes, because maybe this year a particular type of content for beauty works, right? Maybe it's that get ready with me content was really performing, but then because it's oversaturated, a new style of content has to come up now for beauty brands to stand out. So it's more observing the content trends and to recognize when a content trend has been oversaturated, and then going to those brands that you're already working with to say, hey, look, it looks like get ready with me's are not performing as well, but storytelling videos are now really what's performing. I can do this for you, right? And so if you can come with that extra value to the brand because you can position yourself as an expert who understands trends and what's passing and what's upcoming, that's also a huge value that you can bring to brands. But another trend that I have been seeing outside of content trends is just platforms. There are more and more platforms where you can be a creator for brands. I've seen brands ask me for content that they can put on their Amazon page. I see brands and especially tech companies start posting UGC style content on LinkedIn. Like it's totally not saturated yet, right? Like it's like right now, most of us are just creating ads for Instagram and TikTok, but now there are more and more platforms where brands are starting to test short form content, reels, UGC ads on. And so I think that just opens the door for even more partnerships and, finding brands on Amazon and bestsellers, like go pitch to those brands. Find brands who are starting to post on LinkedIn, like go pitch to those brands. I think there's a whole host of opportunities that we're going to see in the coming year.
That's really exciting. So we've talked a little bit about pitching, and I mentioned that pitching is definitely one of my pain points for a variety of reasons. So I wanted to ask you basically how to make pitches suck less. Maybe you can give like 3 tips every UGC creator should include when pitching. And then maybe if it's not UGC and maybe somebody has a little bit more of a following, things that they should be including in their pitches as well. So Let me know.
I mean, pitching, I don't know anyone who says, like, pitching is my favorite thing ever. So you're not alone in that. And it's not, I don't think it's really a task that's made to be loved by anybody. But, what can you do to make it a little more fun? Honestly, like, I think one reason people hate it a lot is because it feels so mundane and it doesn't feel creative. But there's definitely an opportunity to be creative. I think, like, we're all creatives as content creators, and I think people should tap more into that when they're creating their pitch templates. A lot of people just make these really boring pitch templates, and they probably took a template that some coach put online, but they don't make it unique and creative to themselves. And so if you can make it more fun and make it more you, add a creative spin to it, that could be one, like funner for you, but then two, get a lot better responses. So doing something creative and fun in your pitch template is definitely a tip I have. Again, you can use Bento to like outsource your pitching. If you are someone who really hates pitching and you can't stay consistent, Bento has an AI virtual assistant that does all your pitching for you every single month, so you don't have to touch a pitch again. And then the third is actually just thinking about, at the end of the day, what is pitching trying to do for you? It's trying to help you build relationships with your dream partners. And I think a lot of people forget that at the end of the day, the goal is to build a relationship with the brand. It's not just to get a deal done in the first email. It's not that transactional. And so I think the more that you can think about it as relationship building, it becomes a lot more fun, and making sure that you treat your partners in that way. So, there are partners that I've worked with where we talk now like we're friends, or like we text each other, or we connect with each other on LinkedIn. That's the goal, right? Is to build these relationships that are hopefully going to be long-term for you. And I think that makes it funner and more fulfilling when you can view sales and closing deals in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely shifted my perspective there on how to think about pitching. And that being said, I absolutely love Bento for that reason, because it really does take the weight off of my shoulders of having to, come up with a unique pitch every single time. And it does leverage the power of AI, and everything is so organized. I could not create those on my own or duplicate them. So I wanted to ask, for those who are interested in Bento, for new signups, what should they, when they're starting out, what should they be doing? What is the first thing when you sign up for Bento? What do you need to do?
Yeah, super simple. Like, you can sign up in less than 60 seconds. We ask you a few pieces of information to help curate your brand recommendations. And then you'll jump into our dashboard and write your own pitch template. As I mentioned, we use AI to help you draft a pitch template, but you can go ahead and personalize it and make it your own. And once you have your pitch template, you can start pitching to brands right away. Every user, when you sign up, you get free access to 20 emails every single month, and you can stay on a free plan forever. And so that makes it super accessible for anyone who's just getting started. And then we have paid plans that give you more access to features, more brand contacts, and more automations. And that's really if you're trying to kind of take pitching a little bit more seriously and scale as a content creator.
Yeah. Is there anything, maybe like a common misconception or a common mistake, that you see creators repeatedly make that we should address?
Common mistake is definitely not sending enough emails. So I think a lot of creators think that if you send 5 or 10 emails, you should get a response. And that's just not the reality of what cold emailing is. A lot of people don't come from that sales background or that business background, and don't realize that, the average amount of emails someone needs to typically send is like hundreds before they get a response. And so creators really need to think about it as a numbers game, rather than like, oh my God, I'm sending one email and I have to spend 1 hour for every single email, because that's just not the cold emailing game. So the biggest mistake is just sending enough emails. I think people give up way too early. I say like the minimum you should send is like 100 a month, and maybe even 100, you might only get 1 or 2 responses. And so sending several hundred a month is kind of a goal that you should try to achieve. And yeah, so sending enough volume, and then of course making edits and refinements. Like, just sending hundreds and then never making changes to your pitch template or to your portfolio or to your case studies that you have. Like, if you don't make any changes, you can't expect anything to change and improve for you as well. So send a lot of emails, but then monitor and see what's working and what's not, and make adjustments so that you can improve your results.
That's great. At what point should you be tweaking? Because I know if it's a volume game, then also you need that data for feedback purposes. But when should you start fine tuning?
Yeah, I would say a good place to like check in on your metrics is about once a month, but it depends on how many emails you're sending. If you're sending only 10 emails, once a month is you're not going to have enough data, right? So I would say if you've sent 300 to 500 emails, that's a good place to just look at your metrics and see like what's your open rate, what's your response rate. But keep in mind that a lot of deals don't happen in that month, right? Like I've had so many people send me an email 4 months after I sent the first pitch, and then that's the deal that happened. And so even if you send 300 or 400 emails, you might need to wait a few months to see how many of those initial batch emails got a response and closed. And so there's kind of this lagging indicator as well. So I would say like minimum 300 emails before you can actually review your metrics, but then a couple months to see like how many of those emails were you able to close through follow-ups or through check-ins?
That is super helpful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, can you tell everybody where they can connect with you and also try Bento?
Yeah, so you can try Bento for free, and it's on bento.com, so onbento.com. And then for pitching tips and advice, we give a lot of that on our Instagram, and that's just @onbento.
Any final words for aspiring creators or maybe a story from your journey that you'd like to share?
I think for me, when I think about my 10 years of doing brand partnerships and sales and just working with brands, a thing that has taken a long time to learn, but is a really key lesson for anyone who's trying to close partnerships is that you don't know unless you ask. You always have to make the ask. A lot of people get a no and they stop there, or a lot of people get an unideal first response. Like sometimes a brand will say, we only do affiliate partnerships. But if you don't send the email to ask, okay, but do you also do paid partnerships? You'll never know. And so I think people just don't be afraid to put that ask out there, because if you don't ask, you're never going to get. And maybe, 90% of the time you're not going to get the answer you want, but 10% of the time you will. And that 10% of the time is worth it to make the ask. So just always, really encourage people that it might be scary to ask for what you want because you might get rejected, but practicing that skill is really what makes a good salesperson and a good business owner, and how you go from, a hobbyist to a full-time content creator.
Wow. Thank you so much, Jaclyn. That is so helpful. And you've shared so much knowledge. You've dropped so many gems throughout this episode. I'm going to share all of the links and everything we chatted about in the show notes and YouTube description as well. So everyone head over to onbento.com, and I'm going to make sure that I include my referral link. I want to say thank you so much, Jaclyn, again, for your time and for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. You've been great.